Hello. Thank you to the chat organizers for putting together this wonderful festival. All right, so I do the archaeology of numbers. Numbers appeal to me because their materiality is somewhat elusive and not even always considered sort of culturally produced. Certainly, philosophers and physicists dispute whether numbers are human constructed artifacts or are some kind of intrinsic coding of the universe. So numbers kind of exist in between material and discursive culture, challenging notions of such distinct categories even. Like, does the concept of fiveness exist discursively outside material iterations? I'm definitely on the side that suggests that fiveness requires some material substrate to be iterated, if even just the neurons in the brain. And this materialization is my concern. How are numbers constructed and why are they prominently displayed, particularly in highly capitalized areas? Is there a relationship between practicing capitalism and public quantification? The widespread use, display, and production of numbers tracks pretty well with the rise of capitalism, as many have pointed out. Of many potential numbers, I chose temperatures to study. Temperatures really epitomize that haziness between material and discursive artifacts. They represent physical conditions, yet require highly designed observations. They are normalized and banal numbers, yet increasingly politicized via climate crises. So does the ubiquity of temperatures and the resources dedicated to their production and display do something more than just tell us how hot it is? So I'm going to run through a few temperatures here that I've collected over the past few years, and take a look at their construction, use, and semiotic resonance, and then get to some of the implications of this at the end. So this work is inspired by what Nicole Seymour calls irreverent eco-criticism. Some might accuse my argument that temperatures are dense semiotic artifacts interwoven with real estate, fashion, and gentrification is somewhat frivolous. But Seymour advocates irreverence, not as a refusal of political ideas, but rather as a unique means of committing to a political ideal. She goes on, at a time when a significant portion of citizens do not share environmentalist views on global warming, a different epistemological stance is in order. If we can laugh at ourselves, be less sure of ourselves, we might be able to understand why we can't make others understand. So one thing archaeologists might do when studying temperatures is develop a typology. You could classify temperatures as digital versus mechanical, or by unit maybe, or by the material from which they're derived, like mercury or metal oxides or isotopes. My typology is based on the time period to which the temperature refers. There are present temperatures, those you see on a thermometer. There are near future temperatures, those you see in a forecast. Archaic temperatures, those created by paleoclimatologists, and the deep future temperatures that the IPCC is producing. Okay, so here's this artifact one. You see this on a billboard, or this was captured on a billboard in the Soho neighborhood of Manhattan. It's a pretty expensive, fashionable spot. This artifact, as you can see, appears as part of an ad for the French fashion line Yves Saint Laurent, with these nice looking people on it. The artifact here is this 97 degrees, the number here, the electric number. You can kind of see the company that owns and operates the billboard is Outfront Media. They sell this space for $20,000 a month. Outfront uses another company called Daktronics to make the electric signage for its billboards. Electric displays of temperature like this, these use resistance thermometers, or thermistors they're called, to translate the thermal behavior of materials into a number. These thermistors observe the resistivity of metal oxides. This one in particular is composed of a cocktail of manganese oxide, nickel oxide, copper oxide, ferric oxide. And the warmer it is, the less resistive the metals are, meaning more electricity flows through them when it's warmer. So why do temperatures frequently appear on billboards like this or in other urban spaces? Is this some kind of public service? Does knowledge of current thermal conditions improve our lives? Do we need to know how hot it is when we're already outside walking past the billboard? Doesn't really seem like it. I mean, if you're outside and you see the temperature is 97 degrees, you already know it's hot. Is this numerical artifact doing something else then? Well, there's a long tradition of theorizing the semiotics of urban space. Futurists, postmodernists, decolonial theory does this. Critical to a lot of these, though, is this idea of site specificity, how a sign works with its surrounding environments. This artifact, 97 degrees, is working in concert with the fashion ad and the New York real estate market, and it's embedded in a highly capitalized social fabric. The fashion ad is presenting here this hypothetical world of beauty, a world that doesn't really exist. In an image like this, temperature lends its normalized reality to the hypothetical world of the ad. These beautiful people aren't just lying around in some abstract world. They're lying around at 2:56 p.m. in 97-degree weather. Temperature lends its perceived scientific groundedness to this ad. And based on their lack of clothes, the hypothetical world of the ads looks pretty warm. Similarly, in Artifact 9 here, the temperature is reifying the techno-utopian reality of perpetual iPhone releases. More than just marketing strategy, materializing hypothetical worlds is indispensable to the practice of capitalism. To practice perpetual accelerating growth, which capitalism is, requires either disregard, overcoming, or ignoring material finitude. The quantified epistemology exemplified by temperature helps facilitate this exchange of material for hypothetical worlds. Artifact 8 here, number 62 degrees, appears on the Brooklyn Bridge, above a burning car. This artifact was also produced by a thermistor, but from a different company than the previous artifact. Every company's thermistors use a slightly different recipe for the metal oxides. This kind of challenges the idea that there's a real single temperature at any given time or place. If Daktronics uses 34% manganese oxide and Watchfire uses 33%, which of these is the actual temperature? Temperatures aren't just these pre-existing entities floating out in the universe, but they are products that must be materially fabricated. This artifact sits atop a newly renovated luxury apartment in Brooklyn. Previously, the incredibly valuable real estate here was owned by Jehovah's Witnesses, who sold it in 2016 to this real estate conglomerate for about $340 million. One of the partner firms in the purchase was Kushner Companies, whose CEO at the time was Jared Kushner, and he had to step down to become White House advisor after that. When the temperature display was owned by the Jehovah's Witnesses, the presumed normality of temperature served to ground the beliefs of Jehovah's Witnesses, to tether these beliefs to the physical reality 59 degrees seen in Artifact 3 here. Much like in the Yves Saint Laurent ad, public temperatures contextually normalize their semiotic constituents. Numbers float above vulgar questions of truth. One of the arguments used to popularize quantification in the 18th and 19th century was that numbers were indifferent and amoral, above political or religious sentiments. Okay, artifact 4 here is produced in this bar Sunny's in Brooklyn. The thermometer that generated this artifact is one of many pieces of early 20th century decor in the bar. It's right on the East River and sort of projects this maritime authenticity. It's been family owned for about 80 years or so and hosts live country and bluegrass music reminiscent of earlier times. This artifact was produced by Palmer Company thermometers. Palmer was the first, so it claims, to mass produce thermometers in the US and the first to make red mercury thermometers, vastly improving their legibility. This device is composed of a bronze casing with numbers inscribed on an aluminum plate. It would be pretty naive to assert this artifact functions to provide Sunny's patrons with thermal information. If one does register that there's a thermometer before them, it's not really easy to discern its readings, especially if you're drunk. It seems clear from the surroundings that the primary function of this instrument is decorative, complementing the bar's aesthetic. This artifact works with the aesthetic to help materialize, again, a hypothetical world quite different from the fashion ads, though. Sunny's cultivates a hypothetical world where violent neoliberal gentrification of New York hasn't occurred. There's still working class and uncommercialized musicianship. While this hypothetical world is comforting, it is a neo-nostalgic rendering of non-existent experience, like those created by fashion ads. While the hypothetical world of luxury fashion is aspirational, the hypothetical world of Sunny's is retrogressive. It supposes to be a sanctuary untouched by the history of the last century. Okay, artifact 15 here. It's also in a bar. It's a bar called Hank's. It's no longer around because it couldn't afford to stay in existence. But as this artifact is a much sort of denser semiotic complex. It includes, the TV, turn to the local 6 o'clock news on the network ABC. This artifact is part of a forecast. It's a temperature describing future thermal conditions, which is perhaps, more useful for the bar patrons, like future wardrobe decisions. But is this really even what forecasts do as public semiotic events? Are they produced for us to know the probability of rain in 5 days? Or rather, did they ensure us that the next 5 days have already been mapped into capitalist futurity? Near future temperatures are constructed out of digitized algorithmic equations. Thousands of temperatures are aggregated with other climatological data run through proprietary equations. This one is produced by AccuWeather, but all the meteorology providers have their own algorithms. The meteorology companies get about 95% of their data in the U.S. from the U.S. National Weather Service. It's a public agency. They sell slight computational differences and customizable meteorological information, but they give us the forecast for free because it doesn't really require any work. AccuWeather once did try to lobby Congress to charge for access to the public data so as to commoditize forecasts. The AccuWeather CEO is a donor to Trump and was named the new director of NOAA when Trump took office, but for a variety of reasons, he did not get confirmed to the head of the National Oceanographic and Aeronautic Administration. Atmospheric. IBM is the definitive leader in commercial meteorology today. They've, over the past decade, been buying up several forecasting services, including the Weather Channel and Weather Underground. They have a meteorology AI called Deep Thunder that processes 3.5 petabytes of data per day, generates 26 billion forecasts. AccuWeather only processes 12 terabytes per day. IBM sells customized meteorology products to companies like Walmart and ExxonMobil, but is basically using its meteorology as practice for its AI application to sharpen its ability to process data and make predictions. Weather makes really good data. So this is just an abbreviated kind of overview of some of the field work I do. I also look at temperatures created by IPCC and CERN. Most of my data comes from interviews and archives and patents, actually. But this archaeology, I'm not sure if it's historical or even contemporary. I kind of, in the sense that my artifacts kind of appear and disappear instantaneously, they don't really linger or persist like a lot of artifacts. Um, it's kind of more like an archaeology of the immediate or archaeology of the present. I like Holtorf's definition of presence as a perception of immediacy. Temperatures pop into and out of existence constantly. In doing and theorizing capitalist materiality with its velocity and transience, an archaeology of immediacy might be insightful. So, what can be learned from this archaeology of temperature? What I want to get at with this work is an appreciation for the epistemology of capitalism. It's pretty weird to order society around the perpetually accelerating growth of wealth, especially when living on a finite planet. So how do capitalizing people produce knowledge that normalizes the perpetual growth of wealth? Temperature is one of the most mundane artifacts of this epistemology, evolving directly alongside the rise of capitalism historically. As evidence from temperatures, quantification seems pretty important for an epistemology of capital. Some historians have explicitly argued that the rise of numeracy directly follows from financial pursuits. Certainly the invention of and acceptance of probabilistic reasoning follows from financial pursuits like games of chance and the insurance industry. Like capitalist growth, numbers never end. Fuel runs out, food runs low, water dries up, but numbers keep going. Thermodynamics also follows from financial pursuits. It's from studies of the steam engine that physicists developed thermodynamics. As steam engines overtook water mills as primary sources of work, the physics moved from hydrodynamics to thermodynamics. Efforts to more efficiently profitize the relationship between heat and movement delivered our first and second laws of thermodynamics. And the number produced by thermometers, temperature, was indispensable in this construction. Temperature was co-opted by 19th century thermodynamics to complete the equations that explain the relationship between heat, motion, and pressure. So after being invented in the 17th century, temperature did not become defined until the 19th century as the average kinetic energy of particles. Capitalism is thermodynamic. It requires the generation of more and more heat, the domestication of heats, and an exploitable relationship between heat and movement to perpetually accelerate the growth of wealth. While a lot of people like to trace the history of capitalism through various techno-social developments, like the enclosures, banking, East India trading companies, or slavery, there's a clear leap in the scale of wealth accumulation with the arrival of the steam engine, with capitalism going thermodynamic. Indeed, the steam engine replaced the cheap labor of slavery with the cheaper labor of coal. It's from the thermodynamics of the steam engine that the concept energy was formulated, without which the perpetual growth of wealth would be conceptually impossible. Energy itself is a numeric relationship between mass and velocity. Energy is not a material like coal or uranium. Energy is dematerialized, mathematized work. And to grow wealth forever, you certainly need a dematerialized source of work. Without the thermodynamic conception of energy, capitalism wouldn't make any sense. So it's slightly troubling that our laws of nature are derived from studying how particles behave in a steam engine, a pretty unnatural environment designed specifically to grow wealth and transform the planet into commodities. You can't help but wonder if using a machine designed to grow wealth as the basis for understanding the universe might naturalize the growth of wealth itself, and if the desire to exploit the relationship between heat and motion assumes the perpetual growth of wealth. And this is the capitalized epistemology that we have today. Thank you.